right, thanks for joining us today on this Friday, this Freedom Friday, we might call it. This is the Alex Jones Show. I'm the fill-in host, Mike Adams, sometimes known as the Health Ranger. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And I want to thank Alex for just calling in and giving us a really powerful segment on the NFL boycott. And just to quickly repeat what he said, and by the way, I apologize to Bob Chapman, who's on hold. Bob will bring you in just a second. But the NFL boycott is on. So check out the articles on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And all next week, Alex is going to be hammering this issue home and working with your help to get the NFL to overturn this latest example of government intrusion and total tyranny into the privacy of our physical bodies. It's getting crazy out there. Yes, it's happening. Now they're coming after us at the football games. Bob Chapman joins us now, and I know, Bob, Alex wanted to ask your opinion on these events. Thank you for holding. I'm sorry to make you wait. And, Bob, I'm a great fan of yours. I listen to you on the Alex Jones Show, so good to be with you today.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to be here, and I don't mind waiting at all because it teaches me things, and I want to learn things every day, even at this advanced stage of life.
Well, what's your take on the NFL pat-down situation now and what this means for liberty in America?
Well, I think the most important thing is getting the message out. And second of all, what I would do, let's say I was a ticket holder for the season, I would call them up and say, if you have that happen, if you allow that to happen, I will be there with all my tickets on Monday morning, and you can give me my money back. And I don't care if I ever go to a football game again.
Yeah, very, very good advice.
I think that'll get to them because the revenue that they'd have to give back is enormous. They would bankrupt every NFL team.
Well, let me pose the same question to you that I posed to Alex when he called in. And by the way, just to remind listeners, Bob Chapman is from the International Forecaster. .com, so be sure to check out that website as always. But Bob, do you think that NFL fans will go along with this by and large, or do you think we're now looking at a new wave of people standing up and saying, enough is enough, let's stop this here?
It's hard to say. You won't know until you get there, but we got to tell them that's what they got to do. But they really shouldn't attend. Let them play to an empty stadium and take your tickets in and demand your money back. Because you're not going to be groped by a strange group of people sent from the government.
Trained by the government in special physical and verbal interrogation techniques. In fact, this ought to be interesting. Kind of makes you wonder, how large is government going to get if they keep having to send tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of agents across the country to search people under different contexts? I mean, what does this mean about the dangerous growth of government, Bob?
Well, actually, it goes to, I would say, around 1936, 37 in Germany. And for those of you who were not aware of it, you know who Adolf Hitler is, I'm sure. But just recently, we had legislation which was passed by the House and the Senate, and it was for the extension of debt. But within that context, they said that they had to reduce the amount of money in the budget that was going to be used. And at the same time, S&P come in and said, well, we're going to lower your rating because you're not cutting enough. And if by November you haven't cut Medicare and Social Security substantially, then we're going to lower your rating again. And, of course, Standard & Poor's is controlled by the banks and the brokerage firms on Wall Street. I know.
Yeah.
I was there for 30 years. And the other thing that they did, which pertains to this, is that they formed a committee of 12 that were going to do this cutting or increasing in taxation, whatever they were going to do. And they have every intention of keeping this committee in its place. And it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, the Super Congress.
Because when they come up with the information that they do in a law, they send it to the House and the Senate.
Bob, stay with us. Sorry to interrupt. We got to go to a break here. Stay with us. We're going to return here after the break on the Alex Jones Show with Bob Chapman, the international forecaster, to discuss more about U.S. debt and the financial catastrophe across the EU happening today. Stay with us. Okay, folks, we are back here on the Alex Jones Show. Alex has the day off, but he managed to call in because, that guy never stops working. One of the reasons I admire what he does. He's always getting the job done for freedom. And another individual who's also working very hard on the front lines of freedom is, of course, Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster. And Bob and I were just chatting off air about some of the things that we want to cover. Bob, you talked about the overreaction of the government, the Super Congress, and even the Enabling Act. Can you get into all that? We got a lot of territory to cover here.
It only takes a second. And so what this Super Congress, as it's called, can do is put together the law, and they send it to the House and the Senate, and they cannot debate it. They can't amend it. They can't filibuster it. They vote up or down, and that's the end of it. So what this has done is take the House and the Senate out of the context. They don't do anything. They just stand there as rubber stamps, like zombies. And so the reason I brought this up, your freedom, because this whole thing is modeled after the 1933 Enabling Act, what the National Socialist Party in Germany passed, which made Adolf Hitler a dictator. And with this panel, these 12 people, that's exactly what they intend to do. So we're going to have a dictator in a few years because we've allowed that kind of thing to go on in our government.
Now, can you explain
true
this council of the Super Congress? How does this make the dictatorship? How exactly does that work?
Well, the two parties put up the 6 and 6 each, and from the House and the Senate. And of course, they're people who will lay down for anything.
Yeah.
And the president just says, "Okay, this is what you're going to do," and they go to the Congress and say, "Here's the bill. Either defeat it or pass it." And 90% of the people in Congress are paid off, so they do what they're told. Otherwise, they don't get reelected.
Sure.
And so so they'll put a bill together, and they'll send it to the House and the Senate, and these meatheads will vote for it, and so they go around and they'll kick everybody's door down and take their weapons.
That's all it takes. Aren't there many examples of this in human history of legislators? For example, in the Roman Empire, the Roman Senate eventually became corrupted and just sort of rubber stamped the dictatorship aims of the leaders.
That's correct. And almost every civilization, every dictatorial government has had the same problem and has ended up the same way. Not all of them, but most of them. And it's an evolutionary process of pure evil and not caring about people at all, as long as whoever was in power got their way. I mean, in the latter stages in Rome in the 300s and the 400s, as soon as they had disruption, they had somebody come out and say, "Well, I'm going to buy the army so I can be dictator," which they did.
Yeah.
And then they'd go off, the outskirts of Rome and fight off the barbarians, and sooner or later the mercenaries, which is most of the Roman army at that time, said was, "Well, we don't want to do this anymore. I'm going home to Gaul," or wherever they came from. And that's the way it's going to end up.
But what's so frustrating about...
If
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If America does not elect Ron Paul and people like him in the next election, that's what they can expect. But these people are preempting that in TSA and in government in relation to the Super Congress. same kind of overriding, overbearing, we're going to do what we want to do, even though it's unconstitutional, and we don't care. There is no Constitution.
Right. That's what is so frustrating about this, is that it seems like U.S. government is now on a track to tyranny. They're following a blueprint that other civilizations or other nations have followed on the road to tyranny. This is happening right in front of our eyes. The things that you have warned listeners about are coming true. The things that Alex has warned about are all coming true. Even Alex says they openly admit what they're trying to do. It's like a recipe book, a playbook, and they're just following it step by step. And yet most of the people out there are completely asleep at the wheel. They don't understand what's happening. They don't understand why the Super Congress is such a threat to their freedoms. Do you think, Bob, that this is about to shift? Are we going to have a reawakening, a resurgence of freedom in America, or are we doomed to go down this path of tyranny a lot farther until things finally turn around?
Well, I think it's up to the American public, and there's no better place to start than at the NFL football stadiums. And if people say, no, I'm not going to go, give me my money back, all the teams are going to go out of business, all the players are going to be out of a job, and everybody's going to be mad at the government. And if they try it at railway stations, well, people will stop traveling unless they absolutely have to. I mean, I won't get on a plane just like Jesse Ventura won't. I'm on every S list in the world. In fact, I don't even live in the United States because I think if I lived there, they'd kill me.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to suicide.
Right. Well, I don't fly either for the same reasons. I think, gosh, if the TSA saw me in an airport, they'd probably plant cocaine in my bag and steal my iPad and still grope me just for their own amusement. So I stay away from airports for that reason. But, you know, why is it, Bob, that mainstream public, and look, the NFL, the people that go to these football games, sports fans, they perhaps don't realize that there was also something in the Roman Empire called bread and circuses, right? That the sports were all a form of distraction so that you don't think about the really important things that are happening around you. I mean, are these the people that can stand up? I hope they are, but I'm not sure yet.
I don't know. We're going to find out, but we got to tell them, all of them who are listening, tell the NFL, if that's what they're going to do at the stadiums, I'm coming in with my tickets and I want my money back. And that's strong motivation for them to call the White House and say, hey, there is not going to be an NFL. And if you try it with the NBA, you get the same thing, and the hockey league, and so on.
There you go. Yeah, that's the answer. You want to shift gears?
You know, we don't have to have sports. We don't have to have sports. It's entertainment. I mean, I play professional sports. I know what it's all about.
Yeah. I don't even have time to watch sports, so I wouldn't have seen this news if it wasn't on InfoWars. I mean, I don't know what your personal viewing habits are on sports, but I don't even look. I'm so busy fighting for freedom and exposing the FDA and exposing vaccine dangers and so on that I don't even have a spare minute to look at sports. But I hope that those who do are going to pay attention to this. Bob, can you comment on now, as we shift gears to the European Union, the financial catastrophe that is mounting there and the massive financial fallout that lays ahead of us here as the dominoes start to fall?
Well, Mr. Geithner, who is the Treasury Secretary, just went to Warsaw to the conference that they have there. And yesterday, the United States and Japan and Great Britain, which is broke, and Switzerland, which just devalued their currency for the first time ever. And you should see the letters we're getting about people pulling all their assets out of Switzerland and Swiss francs. People are infuriated, and they shouldn't have done it, and they didn't have to do it. But anyway, they were told to do it, and they do what they're told by the Illuminists behind the scenes. So what they decided to do was contribute money, loan money, on a 45-day basis, not giving the total, but I'm told it's over $1 trillion, to European financial sectors such as banks and also the central banks of other countries like Germany, etc.